You want to be able to have access to that capital for a fair price or better than 1.5 or 2 points, because that gets real pricey real quick.
In North Carolina, but close to the South Carolina border. Tell us about what happened in South Carolina recently. And I may be oversimplifying this, and this is certainly not my wheelhouse, but my understanding is that there was some legislation put in place that created some significant headwinds for wholesalers, specifically in South Carolina. I think this is a really important time to know that no matter how fast the government changes the laws, real estate entrepreneurs and investors will always be faster and more nimble in navigating them. And I don't think this went 30 days before there was a fairly significant loophole here. Tell us about what happened in South Carolina, how your geographic location and your knowledge from already handling double closes helped with that, and how that turned into Velocity Advantage Capital.
Yeah, so pretty much in a nutshell, it's illegal at this point. It's really muddy waters for you. Talk to 10 different investors, even 10 different attorneys, and they'll probably interpret a little bit differently because the law itself doesn't seem to be very clear. But pretty much if you do an assignment in a wholesale deal in South Carolina now, you run the risk of getting called out, in trouble, possibly fined. Their big thing is they don't want anybody marketing a property for sale unless you own the property is the biggest piece of it. And then assignments themselves, that's still a coin flip as to if an attorney will even do it for you down there. So anybody being smart about it, safe about it, is just like, all right, I'm not going to do assignments anymore, right? I'm gonna get this deal. I'm not supposed to publicly market it, but maybe I have my buyers that I already work with, sort of thing. And now the way around that is to do the double close. So you find someone to help out, and touching on that again, I can't tell you how many times after a closing, someone's called me and thanked me, or even sent letters to the office, or stayed in contact, years later, and then referred us to other family members that sold their property because we really helped them out in a tough situation. We're able to, they tried to sell it different ways, or they just were overwhelmed, didn't know what to do. So that always feels really, really good. But if you get in front of a seller that wants to sell their property, and you get an under contract, and you get to the closing table now in South Carolina, you are running a big risk, and you're not supposed to do assignments anymore. So the way around that is, and a lot of people, if you have a property under contract for $120,000, a lot of people just don't have that capital just sitting around to fund it themselves. Or they're going to have to pull it. Maybe they have to pull it from their investment fund or their IRA or 401k or whatever it may be. And that ends up costing them how much it costs them to take it out of the market, whatever kind of fees or penalties they would have to pay. So someone like myself steps in and says, hey, I've done hundreds of these transactions. My background is I'm a wholesaler investor too. So I know my way around it. And then also a lot of people that do double closings charge a pretty decent amount, 1.5%, 2 points on the money. So I step in and say, I can handle this transaction, and I know the ins and outs. I'll work with you on it. And then also my fee is less than 1%. So I try to make that as attractive as possible. Again, I learned about double closing through a need of myself and my own company, and I use different people for it. And it was just never that great of a process. It was just double closing to them was kind of an afterthought of, yeah, I'll fund this, but I got to make it worth it, right? Like I'm gonna gouge you a little bit with points, or you're gonna have to do everything for me and line it up. And you're lucky if I fund it on time the day that you need to. And with the double closing, you have to be very precise. You have to have everything lined up because that needs to fund 2 transactions on the same day. Sometimes it's with 2 different attorneys or 2 different title companies. So you got to kind of know what you're doing. You have to be strong in communication. And my whole thing was, I just want to package this and make it a great experience for investors, for wholesalers, because I've dealt with it time and time again. And then at the same time, I want to bring them back around. I want them to spread the word that it's a great process. And also it was affordable. So that was my whole thought, and got super intentional about it. I was doing it here and there for about the last 18 months, but the beginning of this year, really buckled down, really set up processes and everything to it. And I'm coming up on 100 of them so far for this year. And I feel like it's just tip of the iceberg, like just scraping the surface, because it's something you can do nationwide, and people more and more are doing double closings instead of assignments to protect their profits, not just on the sell side, but on the buy side. I've had buyers come to me and be like, hey, last deal, you made 40K on that. Why don't you cut me a little break on this one or whatever? They'll tell you all day long, you make what you make, whatever, it's fine. But once people start counting money and looking at it and they're like, this guy just made what I'm going to make on this flip that I'm going to put 4 months into, they will notice it. And that they verbally told me before, hey, let's work together a little bit. Or, hey, you made a killing on me on the last one. And you're kind of like, I thought you didn't care. Right. But everybody starts counting it, other people's paychecks and whatnot. So with the double close, like you said, you protect yourself, you protect your profits, all that time, energy, effort you put into the deal, all the money you put into marketing. Nobody really sees that with the wholesaler. They just think, they're getting these contracts, they're selling them off. It's super easy, but there's a lot that goes into it. So just like anything else, you want to try to maximize that return. And with the double close, it's just a cleaner, simplified process, but you want to have a good experience. And then you want to be able to have access to that capital for a fair price, or better than 1.5 or 2 points, because that gets real pricey real quick.